Hello again. Okay, so I shot a video earlier today, and I wasn't happy with how I started. So I decided I want to redo the video. I'm not going to delete it off the YouTube channel, but I'm not going to post it on top of the video that on top of the Alex Jones Facebook mentions video that I posted yesterday. The video that I posted yesterday from Alex Jones' Facebook mentions was titled "Blacks Banned from Voting in 4 States." Now, he was being somewhat tongue-in-cheek there, and he's basically saying because delegates. The election never happened in Colorado. Cruz basically stole the election. And there's dispute because Cruz had knowledge of the rules and Donald Trump didn't. And also this happened to Bernie Sanders and other in other states where he got the popular vote, but Hillary got the super delegates. All I'm trying to say here is this kind of shenanigans has been going on since 1960 at least. We know that. In Chicago, the Democrats stole the election, the presidential election, by registering dead people as voters and voting for Kennedy. So, this is nothing new. All this stuff that's been happening for decades, at least. Now, Alex Jones, making a headline, "Blacks Banned." He's trying to rile up, it's what he does. He sensationalizes a lot of things. I'm not saying that what happened in Colorado and New Hampshire to what happened in New Hampshire to Bernie Sanders and what happened to Donald Trump in Colorado is okay. I'm just saying we don't live in a representative republic anymore. We haven't lived in one since they created the Federal Reserve Bank and the IRS. We don't have the power. Once those two institutions were created, we lost our freedom, our liberty. And so there's not much we can do. Alex Jones wants to fight the New World Order, and God bless him. But you know what? This book here says it's all coming to pass anyways. He's questioning, where's your fighting spirit? Well, our enemy is against dark forces, demons. And, human beings can get possessed by demons. So, all these dark forces that we're up against, we need to, go after them. We do. We need to fight them. We need to fight back. But Donald Trump sounds like a child a lot of times. And so does Alex Jones, crying out loud. When I hear him talk, and I don't consider myself very eloquent. I'm not a public speaker. I'm not one who likes to get in front of people and talk. But I listen to Donald Trump talk. He's a presidential candidate. He's a billionaire. He at times sounds like a child to me. And Alex Jones says, he's against the globalists. He's anti-establishment, all that stuff. I'm not so sure. Maybe he's never been to Bohemian Grove. Maybe he's never been a member of the Skull and Bones. Like the Bush family and Reagan. He's He's been at Bohemian Grove, and you know, so there, and a lot of goofy stuff happened at both of these places. I mean, I'm going to talk about the Illuminati. I'm going to talk about the Masons, but I want to talk about this election and refer back to other instances where similar stuff is that I've seen, face to face. I've been to Florida during that whole. I was in Florida, traveling with the band I was in for about a month before the election. Okay, before the election. And look, political comments, political discussions, people started having them. And because I was more for Bush than I was for Gore at that time. Look, I'm pro-life. I'm a Christian. I listened to Gore and he sounded like, a flaming hippie when he would talk about, at the time, global warming. And he was blaming it on the auto industry. I mean, we drove a van and trailer through Florida. So, in effect, we were the problem in Al Gore's mind, even though he was flying a private jet all over the place, using all kinds of his house. I mean, he was the biggest hypocrite of all, as far as I was concerned. So people talk about how bad Bush was as president. Can you imagine how bad Al Gore would have been? I mean, enacting all these while he's living it up in, high. I mean, he had a $4 million house in Tennessee, and, then you got Tipper Gore, who I couldn't stand, who was like, Miss PMRC, raising a PG family in a rated R generation. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me! You're a Democrat. They took, how much money did Al Gore take from Hollywood, for crying out loud? Biggest hypocrites in the history of the world, as far as I'm concerned. The Gore duo there, Al and Tipper. I mean, give me a break. I mean, it's just I just can't fathom, during that whole time, my grandma, she's a lifelong Democrat. She really believed that Al Gore, the election was stolen from Al Gore. And I had to tell her, I told her, look, Grandma, I was there. They didn't steal the election from him. He tried to steal the election from Bush by trying to get multiple recounts when the rules said you only were allowed the one recount. And they recounted it like 3 or 4 times, and he still came in second. And the big point I'm trying to make here is the media. The media made it look like tens of thousands of people were disenfranchised. Well, I was in Tallahassee when they were showing like all these people that were protesting the whole thing. And, there were more media people there. There were more media tents there than there were protesters. I mean, there was like, near the state capitol, there was like maybe 20 people at the most. Most of the time there was like a handful of people maybe. I mean, it's ridiculous when you think about that. The way the media can control the mind, and that is absolutely, I witnessed it. I seen it firsthand. I know what goes on. And I don't like talking politics to people because I don't think. See, like I said, I feel like I'm a Martian in this state. This state. Even the Republicans in this state are when it comes to abortion, I mean, for example, I mean, they sold out because, it's just, women, you can't tell a woman that she can't have an abortion without getting some blowback. You can't. And the thing I can't understand, the pro-choicers, go look at China, for crying out loud. China you have forced abortions in China. Okay? It's one thing if they had the same policy here. But no, they're forced. Okay? You have a second child. You get pregnant a second time. And your first child has to be a boy, by the way. They don't let you have girls there. I mean, they want to cut the population by 75% probably. I mean, that's the only reason I could think of why there's going to be a lot of angry young men too. That's the other thing that they want to do, is they want to build up their military there. Well, that's the way they're going to do it, because there's going to be a lot of young, angry men in China, because there's not going to be any women, there. And so I'm telling you, that's the route they're going. And if you're a pro-choicer, how do you justify, how do you look down at someone who's pro-life, but yet you say nothing about what's going on in China with the forced abortions that go on there? And we basically have forced abortions here because 3,500 a day, that's an absurd number. I mean, that's basically 1 million abortions a year. A generation is about 20 to 25 years, depending on who you talk to. That's basically New York, LA, and Chicago combined. That's how many people are murdered. And I think it's murder. Because, look, all your DNA is uploaded at the moment of conception. So you have to then consider that zygote, the term they use for a fertilized egg, is 100% human. And, what's the difference between a baby that's just born, and a baby that's almost born? No difference. No difference whatsoever. But yet, there are people who say you gotta protect, that right to have an abortion. That's a must. You have to protect. I mean, what's wrong with at least bending a little bit? They won't bend at all. I mean, pro-lifers generally do not want the criminally charged. You have the whole Trump thing where Trump said, well, yeah, the woman has an abortion, she should be punished if it's illegal. I mean, technically he's right, but pro-lifers, they want to punish places like Planned Parenthood and abortion doctors. But how can you be abortion? How do you take the Hippocratic oath as an abortion doctor? I've never understood that. How do you do that? And the thing you don't understand is women. This is why I didn't want to delete the other video, because I made this point in the other video. Women, 91% of them that have abortions go through some form of post-abortion trauma. So they know that they're not doing the right thing. I'm all about doing the right thing. You know, Spike Lee, he made the movie called "Do the Right Thing." Hey, I'm all for that. You know, and then, you know, and let's talk about, you know, racism a little bit in this country. I mean, the racism that exists, I talked about this in the other video, it's really reversing. I see it. I've seen it. I've been alive for 40 years. And I've seen how, you know, African Americans have taken some advantages due to, you know, affirmative action, and you know they're just using the system, you know, but then they still bitch about stuff. I mean, they have a job, right? I mean, regardless of what they do, they have a job making money, and they're still bitching. You know, they're kind of arrogant and condescending in some ways. Like, you don't understand what it's like to be black. You can't possibly understand. You know what? You don't fucking understand what it's like to be white in today's world, you fucking asshole. Excuse my language. I said I would cuss on here at times. But you know that I'm not racist, but by heart. But I'm just responding to some of what I hear. You know, because I know that, you know, there are a lot of white people that are racist. I know the KKK is still there, but they're so damn marginalized. It's not even funny. You know, they're not going to be able to create a white nation like Hitler tried to. And Hitler didn't want to create a white nation. He just wanted to take over the world. I mean, he was a lunatic to the nth degree. But don't tell me that there's not African Americans who would, if given the opportunity, look at Obama, for crying out loud. Look what he's done. You know, he's basically turned this country into his vision, and it's garbage. And I'm just saying, you know, racism cuts both ways. That's all I'm saying. If there's racism from white versus black, I guarantee you, there's racism black versus white. It goes both ways. I've seen it. And I've listened to certain people in the media talking. Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson. I mean, they're race baiters. That's what they are. And then you think about, you know, something I heard today on Dennis Prager, which, you know, I've heard Michael Savage call a loser. Well, he was talking about the Asian population in America has been very successful. He actually it sounded borderline racist the way he was talking. But he's Jewish, so I think it's okay, right? Yeah. See, I mean, you can't get away from this stuff. No matter how hard you try, it's there, it's everywhere. You know, you just have to accept it at some point, you know, that it exists. It's part of life, especially when you have multiple races in the same damn country. But anyways, what he was really talking about is how they don't have that many people in government, official, you know, politicians. They don't have many political leaders in the Asian community, in this country. But yet they're doing just fine. Right? They are. They're doing just fine. But then you see, like in the African American community, see, I can use the politically correct terms too. I went to college. I went to a very pro-diversity university. But anyways, the African American community, they have a lot of people in powerful positions, including the most powerful position in the federal government. But yet, they're still struggling, right? I mean, you look on the south side of Chicago. I mean, look, I've been to those neighborhoods. You know, I sometimes do Lyft, you know, in addition to food delivery. And I've gone down there and, you know, I haven't seen any actual criminal activity, but you can sense it's around the corner. You can just sense it. I mean, I didn't want to stay down there that long. Let's just put it that way. Whenever I dropped off someone, like I dropped someone off over by, close to the, I think it was by the University of Chicago, and a little south of there. I'm not sure that's I'm not sure how far it was from Englewood. I don't know the south side that great, but I know Englewood, is one of the top crime areas in the country, kind of like Austin, the Austin community, the Austin neighborhood in Chicago, where my mom actually grew up, and believe it or not, before it became degentrified, I guess would be the term. But the point is the African Americans, they've had political leaders in these neighborhoods, and what good has it done? Asian Americans have had virtually no political officials, and they've been fine. What does that tell you? Just keep your nose to the ground. Just work hard. That's what they do. They work hard. Most people who are successful, they work at it. I wouldn't mind being successful internet blogger. I wouldn't mind that at all. Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll try to be an internet blogger, a successful one, and maybe I'll it just takes me working on it, just doing videos, watching them, and getting better at working on my speaking. Maybe get a better tablet. Maybe get better equipment. I mean, that's all it takes, really, to be successful, be good at something. Just work at it. When I was trying to be a rock star, basically a musician, was what I called myself for many years, bass player. I worked at it. I tried to get as good as I could. And then, I'd fall back, and then I'd work on it some more. I'd fall back. And I have not really been into it, because my interest in being a musician isn't what it used to be right now. I mean, I still have dreams of writing songs and, making music and putting it on the internet, basically. That's pretty much where I'm at with music. I mean, I still like listening to some music. I've listened to more progressive rock in the last several years, really in the last 10 years. I've listened to bands, like I listened to more deeper cuts, basically by Kansas and by Rush. I mean, Rush has always been my favorite band, going back to high school. But I mean, there's a lot of good artists today. Muse is probably like one of my favorite modern progressive rock bands out there. I mean, I got into some shoegazy, I guess you call it, like Coldplay, Stereophonics, and some other artists. But you know, I really appreciate some good music. But you know, and I listen to Alex Jones because I think he, you know, for someone who's primarily an internet blogger, I mean, he's really like I mean, he's got some radio stations, but I didn't discover him on a radio station. I discovered him on the internet, and I mean, he's really good at what he does. I don't agree with a lot of what he says. I mean, you know, I think he says things to just be. See, I think we have to understand. To understand the truth, we have to understand that media, even someone like Alex Jones, is going to sensationalize something, and then the mainstream media will cover up stuff. So you just kind of have to find a balance between. It's the reason I listen to guys like Alex Jones, because they say things like, you know, they're putting fluoride in the water, and they're basically killing us by doing that. And I studied a little bit of chemistry. Look, fluoride's in our toothpaste. I mean, what do you brush your teeth with, Alex? You know, just because they put a little fluoride in the water, you know, it's not going to kill you. I mean, they put it in to keep it clean, to kill bacteria and germs. So, I mean, what happened in Flint, Michigan, I mean, that was, you know, but that's a result of bad infrastructure. I mean, because you know, that's when the federal government had to step in, and because the local government didn't know, it wasn't doing what they needed to do, and that's because the state of Michigan, like Illinois, bankrupt, basically. That has nothing to do with, like, putting fluoride in the water. You know, like I said, most people drink bottled water anyways, so it really shouldn't be. I wouldn't drink tap water for that reason, because, you know, I remember when I was a kid drinking tap water, having no problem with it, and then I started drinking tap water again as an adult. It's like, ugh, crap. That's why I just drink bottled water now, or juice, or milk. Just because tap water tastes like crap. And, you know, I can get a filter, but, you know, I live in an apartment, so, you know, I don't want to run up the water bill for my. I'm a nice guy to my landlord, I guess. You know, I figure, you know, I take a shower, I wash dishes. I don't want to run up his water bill even more than that. You know, that's just me being a nice guy, I guess. I'm nice to my landlord. I'm not nice to, even though, I mean, I could say something, but I won't. Not on here. But I'm not nice to the IRS. They'll probably come after me for me saying that, but that's just because they've come after me in the past. Anyways, I mean, what more can I say? I feel like a Martian in this state, being pro-life, being a Christian. I don't go to church, though. And the reason I don't go to church is because I feel like the church has kind of aligned with the system a little bit. And, you know, the Bible talks about that. The Bible talks about that there will be I forgot the word. It's a term, an apostate church, essentially. You know, a church that basically aligns itself with, you know, the dark forces. You know, the forces that we're supposed to be fighting. You know, and you know, maybe that's, you know, really what Alex Jones is really all about, is fighting the dark forces. But he doesn't. When he says stuff like, elections are stolen, blah blah blah. Yeah, but the thing is, there are rules. You know what I mean? The Republicans and the Democrats do the same thing. That's why, I would vote third party in this year's election. I would definitely vote. I voted for Gary Johnson in the 2012 election. I didn't vote for. I was going to vote Ron Paul, but he was taking the Rule 40, that whole thing. Look, they took the election away from Ron Paul. And, Ron Paul didn't get people were upset with him for not fighting the system. I'm like, you fight the system. You know what I mean? Ron Paul, who are you kidding? Ron Paul's been fighting the system his whole life. And then they take the election away from him. He's probably the type of person that who wants to run for president to get his message out there. He don't want to win. He doesn't want to actually be president. He just wants his message to get out there. That's what I see Ron Paul. And I see that's what a lot of libertarians seem to be about too. Gary Johnson, on the other hand, I think he genuinely wants to be president, and he wants to fix the federal government. He wants to bring things back to, the founding fathers' vision for America. And I don't see Donald Trump. I'm sorry. He's the only good thing about Donald Trump that I see is that he wants to separate America from the globalist system, which is a reason I will probably vote for Trump. If it's between Trump, Hillary, and Gary Johnson, I'll probably vote Trump because Gary Johnson's not going to he doesn't get the media support. I was watching Rand Paul earlier today talk about the whole reason Donald Trump has been successful is because he's a celebrity. And if you got to understand, this is why I'm not someone who says he's anti-establishment like Alex Jones says. He's a political outsider, but he's a elite insider. He's part of Hollywood. He's had the show Apprentice on NBC. Okay, where is NBC based? And he was also on SNL, by the way. Where is that? I've been on that stage. I've been in that studio. Where is that based? It's based in 30 Rockefeller Center. Rockefeller. So if you don't think that Donald Trump is part of the... He may not be part of the political establishment, but he's certainly a part of the elites. The elite, you can't tell me that he's not. That he wouldn't be a puppet ultimately, like George W. Bush, like Obama, like Clinton. I don't subscribe to the idea that he would actually go up against the system. He would fight the system because he's part of it. He talked about how, in New York, there's a lot of Democrats and Republicans. You have to learn to work with both. Don't you think he'll do the same thing as president? That he'll want to work with the establishment at some point on some things? Don't you think? They hate him, so he must be. I kind of think he's in on it. His whole, just the way he talks like he's a child to me. He doesn't talk like someone who has my best interest for sure. Being pro-life Christian. I feel like I said this before. I feel like I'm a Martian in this state. In this country, I probably should think about moving to Texas or Florida or Georgia or Alabama or Mississippi. Well, I don't want to live in Mississippi, but being close to Chicago, You know, I'm a Cubs fan. That's why I won't move. I mean, I'm a sports fan. You know, I will talk some sports on these videos too. Like, you know, Cubs. Hey, Addison Russell. Sure, they lost Schwarber, and I'm not one of these people who say that Schwarber getting hurt was a good thing. I mean, you know, look, I don't blame any baseball fan for ripping on Cub fans for saying that. You know, I defend Cubs fans for the most part because, look, you know, Cub fans, we're loyal to our team. You know, I mean, we're the ultimate loyalists. You know, some would say you would never, you know, if there was a revolution, you know, you would be trampled on all over. And maybe that's the case because I am a Cub fan. You know, so I'm a loyalist. But, I mean, the point is, there will be a day. The day is coming, my friends. They will win the World Series. Look, the Boston Red Sox, they waited 90 years almost to get their first World Series championship in 2004. Well, Cubs have to wait almost 110 years, probably, get there first. Well, not almost. No, yeah, it was 1908, so it's 108 years. But, you know, even without Schwarber, this team's so deep. I mean, you just hate to lose him so early in the year. If the injury would have happened like August, September, it would have been devastating for sure. But at least would have had him in 100 games or whatever. So I mean, he would have been an integral part in probably 80 to 90% of their wins. But, well, I mean, look, he's out for the year. He's out for the year. We'll just have to wait. We don't have to say wait till next year for World Series championship. But we can say wait till next year for Kyle Schwarber to come back, which is where I'm at. Because he will get a ring because he did play in a couple of games. So there you have it. I mean, at least Cubs win the World Series, he gets a ring. So that's a good thing. And I'll talk about Blackhawks. I honestly haven't watched a lot of the regular season because I get more into the Hawks when it gets to the postseason. Because I kind of felt like this year, they they're just backing into the playoffs. I don't feel like they've given it their 100% all. So I think I could just kind of sense it, just the way they were playing at times. I mean, they had a big winning streak at one point. I think they wanted to, at that point, play at a top level, a high level, so that they could, know that they could turn it on and turn it off, so to speak. I mean, that's kind of what I think. I don't know if that's what happened, but, whatever. We'll see what happens. I mean, they start out with the Blues, I think, tomorrow night. I think I want to say. I think I heard it was Wednesday or Thursday. I can't remember. And then the Bulls. I mean, the Bulls were so disappointing this year. I mean, they had Derrick Rose healthy. Problem is Noah. See, they bring in Fred Hoiberg, this offensive genius. Fire Thibodeau because Thibodeau was, I guess, running him too hard. Because, defense in basketball, you have to play harder to play defense in basketball. It's more wear and tear. And maybe that's why Derrick Rose didn't play that much. That's why he played more this year, because he had a more offensive-minded coach. But, he was still a putz, I felt like, at times this year, because, him and Jimmy Butler, I mean, they were both kind of putzes, and Pau Gasol, what a piece of garbage, he turned out to be. I mean, yeah, he put up big numbers, but his defense, especially at the end of the season, I mean, I kind of defended him a little bit because it was like, they were still in the playoffs, and I kind of like said, well, he's 34, but he didn't. He just gave up playing hard at all. And Mirotic, what bust he's turned out to be. I mean, they were talking about him being like the next Dirk Nowitzki or whatever, and I was like, nah, he's a pile of trash as far as I'm concerned. And Etuan Moore was kind of a good find. I mean, he seemed to be pretty good at times. And I think McDermott looked pretty good at times. I mean, he's someone that could be a good wing player. His defense though is awful. So it's like he looks like a bench player to me. That's what I see him. Just guy who comes off if you need some scoring off the bench, that's what Doug McDermott is going to give you. And as far as I think they're going to keep Rose. I mean, they signed Butler to that big max deal. I think they're going to try to re-sign Rose too, because who else are you going to get as a point guard? I mean, if Rose takes now if someone offers Rose big money, I don't see who would offer him big money. That's the thing. Who's going to offer a guy who sat out like basically 2 years, essentially? Who's got hurt, sat out? Doctors cleared him. He talks about free agency. So, I mean, if he's got to have the year of his life next year for anyone to sign him. That's, to me, next year is it. You got him coming back. I don't know about Noah. They're probably not going to re-sign him. I think Gasol's gone. I think you got Bobby Portis. They might keep Taj. And I think they'll draft someone, a big. And I think they'll draft a big and another point guard, essentially. And they'll keep Butler. McDermott will come off the bench. Mirotic, I don't know his contract status. But next year is that if Rose, it's all about if Derrick Rose shows up, because he's a former MVP. He's certainly got it in him to be an all-star player. Jimmy Butler is an all-star player. So they don't have superstars, but they got two all-stars. And I don't see them bringing back Gasol. I think you bring back McDermott as kind of your guy, points off the bench. And they got to find a free agent wing player, I think. And I think then you have Taj and Portis as the two main big guys, and then you draft the third one. That's what I think, and then you just rotate them in the 4 and 5 spot, I mean, Taj can play either center or power forward. I think Portis he could be, maybe he would primarily be power forward. And then you just draft someone that could play, that could kind of spell either Taj or Portis. That's what I think you do. And maybe then, you sign guys to 10-day contracts, bigs to 10-day contracts, kind of fill in the gaps. Someone gets hurt, that kind of thing. Or just to have, just to give guys extra rest, that kind of thing. But I would not bring. I mean, Mirotic might be your stretch 4. When you want to go play small, or play big. I mean, however you look at it, I guess. But I just think the Bulls are, they're kind of in the worst place you can possibly be. Because I mean, you can't really rebuild I mean, how do you tear it down when you got a max player, Jimmy Butler, and then you can't do it this year. Let's put it that way. I mean, you can't trade Derrick Rose. No one's going to take him. I don't see anyone signing him. I mean, that's the one benefit of him saying all this nonsense is maybe, you know, at the end of next year when his contract expires, maybe then you'll be able to attract a team to sign him for. Maybe he'll sign for the Memphis Grizzlies for a minimum contract. Or maybe you get him to sign for like 2-year contract for like $2 million, something really small. I mean, because he just can't find he's not going to get a max deal. I can't see anyone signing him to a max deal. Whoever does is a sucker, as far as I'm concerned. So, and then, other sports. I mean, the White Sox, they're also playing good baseball right now. Talk about them a little bit. I mean, I kind of became a Sox fan, a small Sox fan for a couple of reasons. In the year 2005, I went to a game, and I went to the game where I forgot who it was. I think it was Pasenik, or I forgot who it was, but someone hit a game-winning home run, and that crowd just went crazy. I mean, that was one of the greatest games of that year, and I was there. And I mean, you couldn't help but be happy because, they won. And the other reason I become somewhat of a Sox fan is because they did a really nice thing in 2008 when NIU had that massacre at Cole Hall, building that I took a couple courses in, and also did an event, did a weekly meeting. I was part of the group, did a weekly meeting, InterVarsity, where we did this outreach thing called Straight Up. It was kind of hokey, in retrospect. And I think it might have been in the same room where that meeting was held, was where the gunman who went to my high school, actually a friend's sister supposedly knew the guy who did this. And, he was also an NIU alum. He was actually going for his master's. I'll never forget his girlfriend saying stuff like he was normal. Like, no, sweetheart, a guy who's taking medication for whatever psychotic problem he was going through. It's not normal. And anyways, 6 people get killed, including him, and it was a time for the university to kind of have really look in the mirror moment kind of thing, and reflect on, and the White Sox did a really nice thing during spring training that year. They wore NIU hats. I thought that was really cool. And they also have opened up their clubhouse to NIU baseball players. When Northern was playing UIC, they opened up their clubhouse, let them, I don't know if they let them practice on the field, but they at least opened up their clubhouse and, kind of get a feel for what it was like to be in the big leagues for a day. I thought that was really cool. And, and this year the football team's going to play a game at US Cellular Field, so I think that's pretty cool. So I have become somewhat of a White Sox fan for those reasons, because they've taken NIU as kind of their, the way the Cubs and Northwestern kind of have a a loose affiliation. NIU and the White Sox have loose affiliation, so I think that's kind of cool. So I mean, I root for the White Sox, when they're not playing the Cubs. I've never really been a White Sox hater. Some of their fans have annoyed me. Of course they say, well, it's only because the Cub fans annoy them. I mean, I don't get into, some of the hatred that, I get it. I have dished out some. It's only because I've taken some abuse. My brother was a White Sox fan, for crying out loud. So I've taken my fair share of Cub criticism, whatever. That's what you do as a fan, of a team, It's like I like to rip on Toledo fans, as an NIU alum, It's all fun. It's not meant to be hurtful or anything like that. But, yeah. So this video is going to go on. This is the video I'm going to post. And I really want to, I want to talk about a bunch of different topics. I don't want to just talk about politics. I want to talk about politics, sports. I'll occasionally talk about movies, but I'm not a big movie person. I just movies, books, time consuming. I'm a person that, my job. I work like 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then I work another, 15 hours, 10 to 15 hours over the weekend. So it's, I put in easily, 50 to 60 hours a week working. And so, I don't have a lot of, I don't, have a job where I could just, open, food delivery, yeah, I guess I could read a book. I could have a book with me and read, while I wait for orders. But, I find myself a lot of times after I do an order, I go home and do stuff. I don't like sitting in my car. I was doing that for a while, but, I'm just not much of a reader. I'll read articles. I'll watch videos on the internet, on YouTube. I'll engage on social media a little bit to a degree. I don't really like social media the way it's structured either, though, because a lot of people are assholes. Some people probably think I'm an asshole, but I don't care. Some of the things I see on social media are just beyond disturbing. But there's nothing you can do about it. That's humanity. And, I want to talk about, the Illuminati. Because I think the Illuminati, there's the Illuminati, there's the Freemasons, there's a Trilateral Commission, there's all the Bilderbergs, there's all kinds of groups out there that are basically trying to take control of the world. I think all these groups used to be separate at one time, but now I think they're consolidating. I think that's what we're seeing happening, is a consolidation of power between all these elitist groups, the Masons, the Illuminati, Bilderbergs, the United Nations. The United Nations may be the first real powerful institution of higher elitism, for lack of what they call them. And they're all about wanting to set up a one world government. And I'm opposed to that. It's happening. It's happening in plain view when you look at it. And you say, well, Trump is probably opposed to that. Alex Jones, in, the people he's associated with. I mean, people he talks to. But Roger Stone, I can't get past this about, because Roger Stone is someone who worked with Bush. And he's Trump's advisor. So, I mean, how do you get past that? I can't. So, I mean, there's other things about Trump. I mean, just the fact that his business is skyscrapers. I mean, that's like the symbol of the New World Order as far as I'm concerned, Look, I mean, Chicago, I grew up where the skyscraper was invented. And look what Chicago has become. Basically, it's Rome West. My grandfather used to like to point out to me that Chicago has the same latitude as Rome. And I well, that's interesting. Wow, Grandpa, that's great. Well, the funny thing is if you look at how Chicago politics is compared to ancient Rome, one and the same. The mayor basically acts like Caesar. I mean, it's kind of remarkable. But anyways, and I'll talk about a bunch of stuff on here because I have a lot of thoughts. I'm not trying to pretend to be the smartest person in the world. I know I'm not. But see, I think there's a lot of people who think that consolidation of power, centralizing government is the right thing to do. I know that's not true. That, the right kind of infrastructure is not going to be right for one group of people as it will be for another. It's infrastructure, that's what has to happen for centralized government to be successful. Everyone has to agree to the same kind of infrastructure. We know, look, you have cable, you have satellite, you have copper wire, you have fiber optics. There's different, and that's just communications. Okay? So, and you got microwave. And because that's cellular technology. Hello, people. What do you think cellular technology runs on? Microwaves. And so there's so many different types of communication infrastructure. And then you get into electricity. The Tesla wanted to give everyone free power. Well, the globalists don't want that. They don't want to give people free electric power. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where, they're capitalists, but only they want to control the monetary system, and they want to control how things operate and the infrastructure. They want to have all that control, all that power. They want it all. They want to consolidate it. And, I'm going to rant on this stuff until I'm dead, because the fact of the matter is, I studied it in college and as a equipment technician for the Illinois Department of Transportation. I know the infrastructure. I have a better understanding than most people about just the communications aspect of the infrastructure. But I also understand the highway system a little bit because I worked there. And so, when people want to argue with me about infrastructure, you're going to see my eyes roll, or you're going to I'm just not going to say anything because government controlled